Hey guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head out to Japan once again, hence the football shirt, and we're going to return to a brewery who I've had very good experiences with in the past. So we're going to go to Iwate Prefecture once again, and we're returning to Iwate Kura. This is perhaps my 4th or 5th review from this brewery, and today we have the Takata no Yume beer. So this one is a 5% beer. It's supposed to be a sort of wheat and rice kind of beer with some yuzu added, and it actually is involved with something very, very cool, which I'll tell you about later in the video. So it's an interesting beer to return. I always enjoy doing Japanese reviews for you guys, so I hope you enjoy my take on this particular beer. It's a really quite interesting one, this. So yeah, so as always, I'll do a little bit of history of the brewery for you for this one. If you want to get straight to the tasting, of course, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Iwate Kura before. No doubt I will add some more in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city or state, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Japanese beers that I've reviewed for you before. You can check out my friends Casey and Eric over at Sotogami Akihabara if it's particularly Japanese beer you're interested in. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys, and the support you give the channel is hugely appreciated. And do in particular let me know about some of the Japanese beers and breweries that I might not have heard of. I know there's some really interesting things over there that you can only find locally. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Iwate Kura then. So this company started back in 1995, the year after the tax laws for beer changed in Japan. So like many craft breweries over there, they find their roots in sake brewing, and the brewery's parent company is Sekinoichi Shuzo, which is owned by Koki Sato, who's the 3rd generation of his family to run the company. Most of the day-to-day operations though are carried out by his son Wataru, and the brewery apparently is a little bit of a cooperative brewery, so there's 5 different companies financially backing this one. So the current head brewer at the brewery is Niwa, who joined the company in 2009, taking over the main brewing duties from Wataru, but he previously worked with Hakuseikikan, and he was trained by an English brewer and has a particular interest in Belgian beers. But since joining the company, he's added many new beers to the range, which have become very highly decorated. Actually, the brewery have started to do very, very well since he joined the company, and they also have an on-site restaurant as well, which is in a beautiful kind of old Japanese campus-style building. You don't find many of the really old buildings in Japan in the cities anymore. Of course, the cities in Japan were kind of burnt to the ground by incendiary bombs during the Second World War, so you really have to go out to the countryside to see some of the very, very old buildings, and that's something I do recommend that you do if you visit Japan. It's a very beautiful place. Do get out of the city and make sure you see what the countryside's all about, because it is very, very different from the kind of concrete jungles that you'll find yourself in. But this is a really interesting brewery, one of the better known craft breweries in Japan in fact, and they do have quite a few different beers. So in their main range they've got the Weizen, the Pale Ale, the Black Beer and the Red Ale. They also have an IPA, the Passion Ale, and also the Kura Kara Stout, which I believe I've reviewed for you on the channel before. So a very good brewery, and one that I highly recommend you check out. So that's all you need to know about the brewery just now. As I said, you can check out the links in the description below, and my friends Casey and Eric, of course, have reviewed some of these beers as well. So make sure you check out Sotogami Akihabara. And a special thanks, of course, to my girlfriend Michiko for bringing this beer to Sweden, and also to Koji at Liquor Store Asahiya in Osaka. He's the one that keeps these Japanese beers aside for me, so make sure you check out the link to his Facebook page in the description below. But yeah, as I mentioned to you at the start of this video, this beer really is kind of something it's really quite cool actually. So Takata was the main area in Japan that was affected by the earthquake back in 2011. So, and this beer is called Takata no Yume, of course, so it's Takata's dream, and this one was actually produced with the first kind of rice grains that were cultivated after the earthquake. So it's really quite an interesting beer, this one, and it is cool to kind of have something like that that shows the area is recovering. A lot of the brewery's equipment and things was damaged during the earthquake, of course, and the company kind of considered themselves a little bit like a family. So during the kind of crisis period that was going on up there, they used to meet at the brewery and grill food and eat together and things like that. So that's one of the kind of things about Japan that's very cool. It's a kind of reflection of the society in general. It's all about harmony and people getting on together. It's a very family orientated society, of course. So a really interesting brewery, and like I said, one that I highly recommend you check out. But you can see here on the front label of this one. So you can see in the hiragana, Takata no Yume. So Takata, of course, is the place, no just makes it possessive, and Yume is Japanese for dream. I actually thought when I got this beer at first that this was the symbol of the emperor, the chrysanthemum, but my girlfriend Michiko told me that isn't the case. But yeah, you can see on the bottom there, it says Japan underneath, so Takata no Yume beer Japan, and there you can see the Iwate Kura on the top of this one. So yeah, really nice beer this one, and we'll get it out then and get on with the tasting. Really looking forward to this. As I said, it's a 5% wheat and rice beer, this one, and they've also added some yuzu to it as well. So we'll get this guy out and into the glass and see how we get on. Yeah, you can smell some of that nice yuzu character coming out of this one already, and there's a little bit of ricey note coming out of it as well. I always love the smell of sake, and that's one of the cool things about the Japanese craft beer scene as well, is that they do use some sake brewing techniques. So some of the beers you can get over there will be very, very unique. So yeah, as you can see, this beer's poured a really kind of pale golden straw colour actually. A solid finger or so of a frothy white head on this one, some big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head, and just one or two tiny little bits of sediment particle floating around in this one. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is a degree of transparency to this, but it mainly is quite opaque. So yeah, you can get a nice little whiff of the yuzu and the sort of sake rice, as I was saying. But let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on. Yeah, that's really quite interesting. It smells actually quite soapy, this beer, which is kind of interesting. When you sugar it up, you start to get more of the kind of wheaty aspects of it. There's a little bit of white bready character in there, but you can also smell some of the nice kind of sweet, ricey kind of sake notes underneath it. Yeah, there's a lot of ricey character coming out of this one. The yuzu in this is quite interesting. You can just, at the back of your nose, you just get a little bit of that kind of sharpness. The yuzu, of course, it's a little bit like an orange, but it's a little bit sharper in flavour. It's got a very distinct flavour, and if you've tried some of these Japanese foods, you'll know exactly what I mean. You really need to try something with yuzu on its own. You need to try something that uses like yuzu sauce or yuzu marinade to really get what this flavour's all about. But it smells lovely, this beer. There's a little bit of grassy and floral character from the hops as well in this one. A little bit of bready notes. You're getting some of the slightly thicker wheat, like I said, and you can smell that nice sweet sake rice underneath. And the yuzu smells like it's been added to the brew rather than, of course, being extracted from the hops, which is what you'd expect. It just has that little bit of a lighter, kind of juicy note to it. But, you know, it's quite simply done in the aroma, but everything kind of goes well together. The yuzu and the rice, to me, it's sort of nostalgic, and when I think about Japan, you know, those are two of the things that I really loved when I was over there. So yeah, without further ado then, as I always say, just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you actually try it. But we'll get stuck into this one now. So this one is the Takata no Yume from Iwate Kura in Iwate Prefecture in Japan, a special beer that was produced using the first rice that they were able to cultivate after the big earthquake there back in 2011. So that's a really cool achievement, of course, and we do hope that that region in Japan recovers. So kanpai to the Iwate Prefecture and the Takata area in Japan. Kanpai. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I mean, first off, this isn't a beer that's going to blow your head off. It's not a big hoppy beer, it's not a big malty beer. It's just a nice kind of easy drinking beer. You know, in terms of lagers and golden ales and stuff like this, if you consider it in that context, it's a beer that you could sit down and session a few of. That's exactly what you would say about this one. And again, as I've commented many times on Japanese beers, a lot of them are not punchy in the flavour. It's all about how things go together, and if you're familiar with Japanese food, you'll know exactly what I mean. And it's kind of reflective on Japanese society, which is all about harmony and things like that. As cliched as that sounds, you'll get that from the beers. But yeah, it's really nice. You could session a few of these really, really easily. So with the malt base on this one, you've got a kind of pale bready character that goes right across the middle of your tongue. On top of that, there's a slightly thicker sort of white bready note in there. Maybe a little bit of smoothness. You get just a little bit of that kind of sweetness from the wheat, of course, and you can detect that almost sake flavour that comes out from the rice. It's just that sort of ricey sweetness, and again, that's a flavour that is very, very unique to Japan. If you've never tried some of these ginjo and dai-ginjo sakes, the pure rice ones, you will kind of not really fully understand what this flavour is, so I would recommend you try some of those before you try the Japanese craft beers in general. But it does have some of that kind of sweetness that you get from the Junmai and Dai-ginjo sakes. Maybe even a little bit of what you get from the Nigori, the unfiltered sakes, of course. It's maybe a little bit more like that. There is a little bit of a kind of grainy character to the beer as well. You do get a little bit of an almost grainy, slightly spicy character in the middle of your palate too. But mainly it's a bready and sort of wheaty base with a little bit of that nice kind of sake sweetness to it as well. I do like that. You know, if that was produced as a kind of big brewed beer in Japan, I think it would do very well. You know, I can see why they brew beers in this style. The Japanese, of course, their equivalent of craft beer, I guess, is sake. There's a lot of people who like to try sakes from different places and different wines in Japan too. Beer isn't such a big thing for them, and this, of course, this would probably be a very good gateway beer for a lot of Japanese drinkers because it does have that little element of quirkiness to it with the sake rice. That's probably a good way to sum up this beer, actually. On the hoppy side of things, in the back corner of the palate, there's a tiny little bit of earthiness. It's almost the same kind of level as you would expect from the German noble hops. But as you come further forward, you get a little bit of bitterness and a little bit of light floral character there. There's a little bit of just bitter dryness on the front corners of your palate, and then as you go around the very front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and grassy. And around that kind of front edge of the palate, that's where you can pick up some of this very distinctive kind of citrusy note that you'll get from the yuzu. There's a little bit of citrusy character in this. If you just go behind the front curve of the palate as well, you'll feel that little oily bubble where these nice juicy fruity esters come out from the beer too. I think they've used some Soriachi Ace hop in this just because of how the citrusy character comes out. It's quite lemongrassy, but it does have a little bit of that almost sharper lemon to it as well, and that goes really well with the yuzu that's been added to the beer. You can really pick that out. As I always say, you can always tell when fruit has been added to the beer because of where the fruity flavours come out on your tongue, and you can feel the yuzu, as I say, just mixing in with everything on the very edge of your palate. And it's just a nice kind of beer, this one. Everything goes together really quite well. So yeah, it's a really easy drinking, kind of nice golden ale, I would say. In terms of style, I couldn't really find exactly what this beer was supposed to be. I would say this is just a nice kind of Japanese version of a golden ale, you know, ricey characters, yuzu flavours. That's exactly how this one fits in, and that's the cool thing about trying different craft beers from different countries. You always get things that are a little bit different like this, and the Japanese guys are producing some really interesting stuff. Like I say, the interesting point is that they use a lot of sake techniques with their beers, and it works out quite nicely for the most part in my experience. So basically, to sum this beer up, a nice drinkable Japanese golden ale with some yuzu and some nice sake rice flavours in there as well. In terms of the mouthfeel, I would say this guy is probably mid-bodied, to be honest. In terms of the golden ale, it is on the heavier side of things. Overall, it's mid-bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth. It's quite an oily mouthfeel, this one, which does suit it. And again, that's a bit reflective of because of the rice being in this one. It's got a little bit of that slightly thicker mouthfeel that is reminiscent of sake. You do often get that with rice beers, of course. There's a little bit of hoppy bitterness and dryness to this one. There's a lot of juicy fruity character. Like I said, the yuzu on this is coming out quite nicely. There's a little bit of sweetness to the malt base as well, and the malt base really on this one. The malt base is mainly quite sweet, but it's got a lot of that kind of wet sweetness that you expect from the sake rice in this beer. But overall, it's just a really nice beer. It's a very nice sessionable beer, this one. I think it would be really interesting to try this one as a cask beer or a keg beer on tap and just see how the mouthfeel differs. And of course, that's one of the problems in Japan. It's a very hot country generally, so they do like their beers to be quite crisp and quite carbonated, but this one overall is a little bit more oily, so I think this is maybe a sort of autumn or spring beer for them, but overall it's just a really nice beer. It's not going to blow your head in terms of IBUs or malts or anything like that. It's all about just how the flavour blends together quite well, and again, that's just reflective of how Japanese food is. So yeah, the particular quirky point is this beer was produced using rice from the area which was pretty much devastated by the earthquake there. So a very quirky beer in that regard, and this brewery is one that I've had good experiences with in the past, so it is cool to see this beer that helped get them back on their feet. So yeah, really cool one to review for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed my particular take on this beer. If you have tried this beer for yourself, do please let me know your own thoughts on it in the comment section below. It's always interesting to hear from you guys. Let me know your favourite beers from this brewery if you have tried any of them. Of course, I have reviewed maybe 3 or 4 of them so far, and I will review more in the near future. But thank you once again for watching. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Do check out my social media. Make sure you check out Casey and Eric at Sotogami Akihabara, and also Koji at Liquor Store in Asahiya. Or Liquor Store Asahiya in Taishibashi, Maichi, Osaka as well. And I will see you very soon with more Japanese beer reviews. The Takata no Yume from Iwate Kura Brewery up in Iwate Prefecture, Japan. Once again, kanpai, and I will catch you guys very soon. Cheers just now. Make sure you try this beer or some of the other ones from the brewery. Kanpai.